and I popped out of my body through the back of my head. So I kind of did this swoop, and I'm looking down at this poor, poor woman. Not poor Claudia, not poor me, but this poor woman, what she has gone through, because Claudia was fine. I'm me. My personality, my curiosities, everything is intact. Nothing of me had changed other than I had taken off a pair of, earth overalls and was just free of that cumbersome body. This was enormous vastness, perfection, intelligence. It loved me. It knew me intimately. It knew everything about me. And it was like it just cradled and held me and loved me and let me know everything was okay. Whatever we go through here, our choices here, our choices to make, we have a contract of this is what I'd like to accomplish this time around. And guess what? There's a lot of times around. That was another biggie for me, was it's not one trip. We get a lot of different trips, and they're all important.
This is Beyond with Heather Tesch, where we examine near-death experiences and life itself, hopefully making this life a little better. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am so excited you are here today, and I'm very happy to be talking to Claudia Edge. Hello, Claudia.
Hi, Heather. Hey, everybody. Hi.
I met you briefly at the IANS conference, and I'm so excited to have you here because you have a really neat story, and it's your near-death experience and all the things that you've learned. So for everybody watching, this is going to be a really interesting episode. Claudia, you had a near-death experience when you were pregnant with your fifth child, and you kind of felt like something was off. It wasn't quite right. And so I believe you went to the hospital at that point.
Right.
So why don't you take off from there and share what happened?
Well, first of all, we did speak at the IANS conference, and those are so important. Those
Yes.
IANS, that organization. And this year we were celebrating Dr. Raymond Moody's 50th year of NDE research.
And for those of you watching, IANS is the International Association for Near-Death Studies.
Yeah. And for me, I lost my dad when I was 16. And my curiosity went beyond faith or belief or anything. I wanted to know where he was. I wanted to know what he was doing. I wanted contact with him, and I chased it for many years. And so Dr. Moody's work was really important to me in the beginning. And so then here I am in the hospital in this emergency situation. And I was carrying a baby. She was full term within a couple of days, and I started to bleed out. It was the weirdest thing. There was no pain. Blood had been going into my, I was going to say uterus, but the placenta, that organ between the baby and mother. And it was going in, but it wasn't exiting. And so it was just filling with blood. And it left me kind of lightheaded, but not in pain or anything. And I just kept getting this, you should go to the hospital, go be checked or go check on the baby. It wasn't, go to the hospital, but it was these kind of whisperings. And eventually I did. And thank God that I was there when it happened, because I was at the front desk. They had barely given me a gown. I had gone into the examination room, and all hell broke loose in not the examination room, the locker room, to get dressed. So here I am in this, cold tiled floor, and the walls and everything are completely splattered in blood. And, you're like, this has never happened before. This is kind of odd. And I could hear myself making these primal noises of fear. I was like, what is going on? And they had called my doctor and said, nothing's really happening. So This was at after 10 o'clock at night. And so there was nothing really happening at the hospital. No, there weren't any doctors in that area at the hospital. So by the time they found an intern, when he raced through the door and saw the situation was dire and the amount of blood everywhere, he said, this woman's got 2 minutes of life left. Because they knew I was dying and there wasn't a heck of a lot they could do. I was asked, I told them I want to save my baby. She was drowning within my uterus in my own blood. And as a mother, and you've carried this baby, and, I said, please save her. And so the only thing they could do in that short amount of time was to hold down my arms and legs and take a scalpel and do a emergency C-section from under the breast to all the way down, and without any kind of anesthesia or even an aspirin. This was, in fact, they had termed me pioneer woman because this was definitely surgery in the raw. There was nothing to block the amount of pain that I was now in. I'd gone from no pain, dying, to now it's excruciating. And I was living in this juxtaposition of being a mother giving forth her life for her child and trying to hold still while these things are happening to my body, and my arms and especially my legs want to jump off the table and run away. So I was in this kind of fight in my own, in my own self during this time. And when they did lift this little lifeless body from me, it was too much. And I popped out of my body through the back of my head. So I kind of did this swoop, and I'm looking down at this poor woman. Not poor Claudia, not poor me, but this poor woman, what she has gone through, because Claudia was fine. I'm me. My personality, my curiosities, my, everything is intact. Nothing of me had changed other than I had taken off a pair of, earth overalls and was just free of that cumbersome body. And it took me a bit to recognize that was death. It was kind of like, it just seemed so natural. The pain was gone. I was safe. I was cared for. But I found myself in a place of complete, I'm going to say, perfect darkness. Now, I'd said earlier that I had studied Dr. Moody. And when I was going into that darkness, I had read accounts of people going through a tunnel. And as I was pulling out of my body, the room was getting tighter and closer. The walls were moving in. And I thought, this must be that tunnel that we've heard of in other NDEs. And so when that got small enough, I just kind of just popped right out. Now I'm in this place of perfection that I had never heard of or read of before. But it didn't matter. I was great. This was enormous vastness, perfection, intelligence. It loved me. It knew me intimately. It knew everything about me. And it was like it just cradled and held me and loved me and let me know everything was okay. And I could have stayed there forever. It just, time did not matter. Nothing else mattered. It was as if what entered my brain, my mind, whatever it was, everything is okay, or everything is as it should be. And earth worries, even to say, as a mother, I had 4 other little children at home. This was my 5th and last baby, and I feel guilty. It's like, because I didn't go, oh my God, my babies, my house, I didn't finish the laundry, or all of those earth things that you think you would really worry about. they're swept away, and you're in this just peaceful calm of knowing everything is going to be okay. And so I'm in this blissful state, and I could hear this scratchy, itchy voice telling Claudia, come back. You've got a baby girl. She needs you. Well, I'd seen my baby girl. I didn't have a baby girl. She was gone. So I'm thinking, why are they tricking me and lying to me? And it was to be in this perfection of, it was feel, not sound or sight or anything. It was just every part of me could feel everything. Best way to explain it. So when this earth sound started entering into this perfection, it was just really annoying, and I just wanted to wrap myself deeper into, this perfectness and get away from it. But it kept echoing, and I thought, I'm going to tell it I'm okay, so that this voice will go away. They'll leave me alone. And as soon as I was trying to form a way to take this spiritual body now into a mouth, a voice, I snapped right back into my body. Now I'm in it again. And I was kind of pissed off to be back, honestly. And I was so ill for such a long time because I bled out. I was in a documented hospital death situation, and they were very curious. And I will tell you, because sometimes I skip and I don't mean to, but they were able to revive my daughter as well. Though she had drowned, they weren't sure how long she had been down. And so they were doing blood gases and everything every hour, and if she made it 2 hours, and if she made it 4, and whatnot. But I'll tell the audience right now that she's wonderful and beautiful and perfect, and so really 2 miracles happened that night. So I'm waking up from, the pharmaceutical sleep and illness and everything, to someone, a researcher or someone who's got this really good candidate for a good near-death experience story, right? And to pull a story together of, I'd never heard of it before. It was, of course, you're traumatized, which sometimes it takes years to even figure out what it was that happened to you. And the only words I could, explanation was, I was in darkness. And I really felt like there had been a negativity flash across the researcher's face of that my explanation was so limited. And I took that negativity and went, well, yeah, I guess some people might think being in the darkness is bad. This could be misconstrued. And so I went into a valiant effort for 25 years of keeping it completely personal and sacred and tucked away deep inside of me, so that it wouldn't be spoiled by somebody else's opinion of what I went through. I called myself a closet NDEer because I wouldn't talk about it. And as I'm getting on these groups and within the IONS organization and I'm hearing, well, more and more people are coming out of the closet of the perfect blackness. And so it gave me, I was able to kind of take what I had experienced, feel, pride isn't the right word, but confidence in it, that I wasn't alone, and to start telling my story. So many, many years passed. And when I was ready and I was expressing, hey, I'm ready. I want to know, I know there was more. I really felt the swaddling and holding of me was a kind of a correction of the trauma of everything I'd gone through. You know, hush, hush, my child, you know, you're going to be okay. And so I spent years trying to, what was it? What did I see? What, you know, I hear, you know, colors or buildings or gold or, you know, the record, you know, all of these things that you hear in other NDEs. And I was really trying to bring those forth and listening to a lot of other NDEs. And it was out there, but I couldn't touch it. I couldn't pull it forward until I started having these amazing dreams. And I learned eventually it was my spirit guide, but you know, when you're having this regular dream and there is something that's flitting around, that's doing something different than what the story in your dream is. And it kept pulling my attention away. And it was when I finally was able to focus on it, it was a fairy, but we're not talking, you know, the Disneyland kind of beautiful fairies. This was this short, chubby, hairy front and back guy that had a stogie, half smoked stogie, and he was carrying a wand. It was the weirdest, most laughable. It reminded me kind of like Rocky and Bullwinkle kind of cartoon thing. And when I could focus on him, he would take that wand and he would, you know, tap the wand on. He was holding up this, not a sheet of paper, but more just kind of a sign. And when he tapped the wand on it, it would read things, and he would say, "Pay attention to this," or "Talk to your family," or and eventually it was, "Come with me." So for a long time, we practiced. I didn't know I was practicing lucid dreaming, but I was certainly getting to know that my spirit guide was quite a character. And I know from your shows and other shows, you know, the other side is so lighthearted. They're so funny. They live in joy, and they crack themselves up. And this had to be, you know, my guide's like, "I'm going in with this fairy costume and I'll get her attention," kind of thing. And so what I was being brought to is a place that I call spirit school. So my NDE was short in the beginning, and now it expands constantly. I'm constantly getting new information. It's amazing the progress that I've gone through from this inquisitive and not very knowledgeable as we start out in the teachings of spirit, you know, to wow, I kind of get it now.
It's interesting that we call it the void when you're describing that there was so much there.
Yes. Well, and I fought that word, the void, because several people said, "Oh, you went to the void." And I'm like, well, to me, the void seems like it's minus something, like it's missing something. And my place was everything. It was nothingness, but it was everything all at the same time. It was so there. It was infinite. There was no end to its intelligence, its love, its size, its time. It was everything. So when someone says, "Oh, you went to the void," it was like, I can't call it that. I went to the vastness.
While you were there, you felt love. Was that God?
In the beginning, I would have probably said yes. Now I feel more, the other side is so much of a collective of, you know, all of our beliefs, Jesus, Buddha, God, our ancestors. You know, I really feel like it was just I'll just say the other side, the collective of the other side is is how I look at it now.
And when you experienced that love, how did that compare to earthly love?
Oh, I mean, here I left my body over the loss of my baby, right? So I loved my baby. I hadn't met her yet, but I loved her for 9 months. I loved my children. And to have thought, I just want to stay here forever, that's pretty big love. that, there's, earthwords are really hard to express some of these really big spiritual phenomenon and explanations. In fact, that is one of the questions that I had during spirit school was, why don't you just tell us why this, secretive or whatnot? I've been told, church leader said, it's not secret, it's sacred. And I'm like, well, I would treat it in a sacred fashion. I don't want it to be a secret. I want to know, this digging and pondering and wanting. And I would suggest to the audience that because we have free will, and this is our ride here, our personal journey, that they don't interrupt or intercede unless asked. So asking for these things, and if the timing's right, took me 25 years, but those doors opened up for me to gain enough spiritual knowledge a little bit at a time to build a foundation to kind of understand the answers that were coming to me, that they were bringing me to spirit school one lesson at a time. Who is God? Who are we? Why are we here? What's our purpose? Do we come back again? And so these lessons would come in nightly blocks, and they were clearly identified as, this is a metaphor. This is a parable. We're telling you a story. This isn't exactly how it is on the other side, but here's a way that we can explain it, and then you can wake up the next day and give it out, with some kind of a degree of credibility of, that it kind of starts to make sense. So our foundations here are really, really important. I've been asked, is it necessary for everybody to watch these podcasts and read the books and do all of these things? And it's like, no. I mean, we're free. We can do, if there's no interest there, of course we don't have to do that. But if you're genuinely at a point in your spiritual progression that you want to learn more, you want, then, it's imperative that we do those things. So, one of the spirit schools, I'll tell you a little funny, was, I was shown, an example of humanity and where we're at right now. And the example was in like an old maid's dining room. Here's the table, and it's got the crocheted, little cream tablecloth. And there's all kinds of house plants on this table, but they're withered and viney and overgrown, spindly and thirsty. And, it wasn't a very attractive table. And you could tell that it was trying to be managed, but it wasn't really, really taken care of. And so I was given an opportunity to bring it some heaven water. Now, there was a table. Here I am in this spirit school. Okay. Again, metaphor, kind of story. But there were to-go cups, kind of like, the fast food joint to-go cups with the plastic lid. And I was filling them with heaven water to take back to humanity, right? You bet. I'm gonna volunteer, and I'm gonna bring back heaven water and help everybody. My knowledge, right? This is showing things that I was learning that I would be able to come back and teach, was shown as this heaven water. So here I am pouring into these cups, and my earthliness, my greed, whatever, I've got stacks and stacks. I've got, 4 on the bottom row and 3 up here, and then a couple more here. And I'm trying to carry this whole stack of heaven water. I want to make sure that I'm bringing back enough. And I took a couple of steps, and of course the cups are toppling to the ground. And I was so upset at myself for my thoughtlessness to have wasted this perfection of this heaven that I was being allowed to take, and my greed and my wanting more and more lend it to be spilled and ruined. It's now on the ground, and I'm looking at this, and I wanted to cry at my own selfishness or whatever. And I just hear this giggling, and they're like, it's okay. There's plenty where that came from. Don't worry about it. But it was suggested that I take just one cup, and what was in that cup would be the entirety of the ocean of knowledge if I just went through that water one drop at a time, really examine it, really learn everything I could about it, and it would give me the answers in those drops. I didn't need all of them. I didn't need the ocean. What was in that cup were the answers. And so that's how I kind of equate what I've been doing for all these years now, is examining all the drops in my cup.
So what are some of the drops that you've discovered that are the most fascinating to you?
So awesome. One of them is the first time I heard "we're God." I was like, what? We're God, we're just lowly man, right? We're, not that I grew up, we're sinners or anything like that, but, it's like to equate myself with God. Seriously? But what I was shown was a metaphor of God tearing pieces of himself off of himself. And I have stories are in my books, I want to get to a lot, so I won't expand on every detail of it, but those pieces were individual, those tearings, each one a different shape, each one holding a different, because it had been part of an art of beads and pearls and whatnot, golden threads that represented God. Now on the floor are these unique shaped pieces of a fabric, or a fabric with a string of gold thread, or a couple of pearls, or something. But every single one of them were individual and unique. And when that spark of God was given to us, and we all went in our separate directions to lead our lives, we are pieces, shards, a piece of the tapestry of God. We are a part of God. God, that was huge to me.
So are we here to experience things, to grow?
Yes.
What is the point of all of this?
Well, so here we are, we're separated from God, and we're here in this earth basically to experience separation, imperfection. We're here. I don't want to call it a test, because there's no failing our tests. Whatever we go through here, our choices here, our choices to make. We have a contract of this is what I'd like to accomplish this time around. And guess what? There's a lot of times around. That was another biggie for me, was it's not one trip. We get a lot of different trips, and they're all important. And every choice and everything that we do on those experiences, on those trips, whether our humanness wants to call them good or bad experiences, we did something bad, it's important, because what is important on the other side is love and knowledge. Those are the two standouts. And there is a constant quest to learn more, to know more. God is constantly reevaluating situations. That's why when we go back, we have a life review. It's like, what could we have done different in this situation? What was the build up to, say, two similar people in a town, same age, two boys in the same town, grow up in about the same kind of financial, situation, both parents or whatever, but one of them ends up being a murderer and the other one is starting homeless shelters. What was that one spark or something that changed, this person? And it's chased after that kind of knowledge is really, really, they want to obtain it all. He wants to obtain, and I say God is, that's a whole nother episode, but that quest to know and examine. And so, that was a biggie for me, is who is God and then who are we? Well, we're God and we're serving God. We're basically foot soldiers here. In fact, I was given the words, let me think, where boots on the ground where celestial pavement ends. I woke up to those words. Who am I? Boots on the ground where celestial pavement ends. And I understood that what I'm doing is in service to God. So everything I do, every decision, is important and looked at.
I've heard others use that phrase, boots on the ground. You got more knowledge, and I think it kind of opened up more of your near-death experience.
Mm-hmm.
I had heard you say that when you went through the tunnel, it was like a bubble and you could see into deep space.
Oh, that memory. Well, in fact, I'll say memory, but I did ask one time, I woke up and went, are these memories or are these new experiences? And again, that kind of chuckle. And it was like, does it matter? And I was like, well, I guess it really doesn't. Just keep them coming. But yes, I found myself in a bubble. It was thin. It didn't, I could hear everything. It was so matter of fact of a bubble, but I'm sure, protection, since I'm still part of Earth or whatnot, long subject there, but standing next to me was my spirit guide. And we were going through the stars. It was so, for someone who is just adored and loved and wanted to know, what's out there, who's out there and whatnot, to be able to travel through the stars and they would come through and I could hear them talking. They were talking to me. They were, oh, Claudia's back. How was it? How was the trip? Oh, we've missed you.
Were those stars that were talking to you?
Yes, they were addressing me by name. It was uplifting and loving, and I was awesome, and I was back, and they loved me, and where have you been? And oh, we're so happy to see you. And I wondered at this trip, I asked, are we stars? And what I got were little saturated dreams, examples of, and I spoke of this once before, of my brother. I have a brother that's a year younger than me. And, he's gone to the gym almost every day of his life. He's suntanned and oiled and muscular and everything. And my guide said, and I said, are we stars? And he says, well, do you want to see Jeff's star? I was like, sure. And he points up and we're looking, and this star did this little extra twinkle thing like a weight builder would kind of do. I could tell. I was like, oh my God, that is my brother's star. But I still was like, well, are we stars? Are we, is this our place we return to? Do we like our own home, or we each have our own star? And I didn't mean to, but since we're into this, I'll expand, because another one of the examples that I was given was waking asleep and being in what I would call a nebula in the universe, the beautiful colors. And I was on kind of a mezzanine and looking down. And what was happening below me was the making of a star. It was in this tube, and it was the masses of dirt and chemicals and gases and everything that was molten and molding together to configure this star. And I was with some other, and I'm going to say children, and again, metaphors are used, something familiar. Now, I grew up in, the late 50s and early 60s in on the playground with, black and white pictures and everything. So the children were focused in black and white to show me young, right? This is, how they refer to a lot of things as something familiar. So I'm seeing those old dresses and the shoes, the black and white tie shoes and the petticoats and all the things that the girls didn't wear pants in those days. So, it was like I recognized immediately that my age was right around 8 years old in this metaphor that I'm being shown. But was also explained to me that because this is a metaphor, what I was being shown is not my earth age, but my progression, my spiritual progression. I could have been eons old. We were called primaries, and we were at a specific point in our progression that we were going to be getting our own star. So here I am with about 8 other little children, and we're looking off this mezzanine, and there was a chance of designing our own star. It could have been we were designing our own lives, our journey. So many of these things, they come in fractions, right? And then the story is built. So this fraction of Are We Stars, there was a girl in front of me that she wanted her star to be pink. And everything that she did, adding color and whatnot, was going to be pink on her star. And the little boy right in front of me was into Lincoln Logs, and he was adding all kinds of things and wires and things poking out of his star. But it would do the rotating thing within this tube, and as it was rising up, it would be given the light of God. It would just ignite and just it was alive now. So I don't have all of the answers, but man, when I go to bed at night, I'm like, give me something good. Give me something to talk to Heather about.
I want to be in your dreams.
Yeah.
That is just incredible.
Yeah.
It just shows that there is so much beyond our imagination of what exists. And sometimes we think of things in such limited earthly ways, and yet there are infinite possibilities that are going on in this other realm.
That's the hardest thing, is to not attribute earth stuff to, like, can you imagine that we're raising our hand? I need somebody to go down and starve. I want to experience starvation. Oh, I'll do that. It's like, in our right minds, in our earth minds, I guess, who was gonna volunteer for that? But over there, it's such a small service, and there's so much to be learned from it. The things that are happening in the world today, man, I don't want to get into politics or anything else, but these things are purposeful. They're purposeful in bringing us to another place, to another learning possibility, and another choice, and so some things are purposely even hard to explain or imagine that God would let happen. My earthness is like, I can't even imagine, how could God let a child starve or be abused, or all of the horrible things that, sorry, I get goosies and stuff of thinking of it. But But it happens, and we choose those things. So as I say that, and the audience is going, oh, right, it's hard to use. It's hard when we use our earth knowledge in a spiritual situation. It's so much bigger than what we can imagine.
A viewer once asked me a question, and it really stuck with me. And she had had a very difficult childhood. And she said, when has God had enough?
Mm.
When have we experienced enough abuse, enough starvation, personal tragedies? And I thought that was such a great question. And I don't know if you even know the answer to something like that.
I have one answer because I think there are many to that question. I think there are many answers, but even as I see my own children go through adversities and things, and one of the answers is not taking on the victimness of it, and I don't mean to be less sensitive to a child that's been abused or anything. I don't mean that at all. It's horrible, but it's what are we learning from the situation? You've probably seen that Facebook meme where it's like, what is this situation teaching me, or what am I not getting that this keeps repeating over and over and over again? Have I not forgiven, or haven't I learned something, or haven't the other person learned something? And I'm here on a volunteer basis to go let myself be put through this horrible thing because this person needs this lesson, and I volunteered to be his victim. I mean, it's mind-boggling when you take it out of that earth context.
So we often hear that we are one, and yet we also must be individuals, because otherwise we've already learned these lessons before in all the past people that have journeyed here to earth and other places.
Well, as I saw the individual pieces, us being created from God, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our draw is to be back, to not live in this separation anymore. We want to be back and back with and a part of God, right? We've got our individuality. I mean, it's certainly changed things up because now we have this uniqueness of when we get back together, we're going to be more of a collective rather than just the God individual. Now, he's made a family, or throwing things off the cuff here, but that separation is, I was shown, is necessary for the experiment or whatnot that we're going through here on Earth. That's why we go through the veil, because as you said earlier, we are magnificent souls, so full of knowledge and love and perfection. And we go through this veil of forgetfulness to come here for this chance, this loving earth that was created as this proving, testing ground, purposeful, and it was offered in love for us to be able to grow and to continue our spirituality, so that we can eventually get back to God. Because as we start out, we're babies in this. We're learning now again. We've taken on our own personality, and we have to get back to use the words like vibration and frequency to be able to now match with God, to even be in the presence of God. We're not there yet. One of the spirit schools that I was shown was, and I'm no mechanic, but it was a spring type looking metal, and inside each one of these loops was like a cog vibrating, perfectly vibrating, no attachments to it, just humming in the center of this. And what I was shown is those cogs are us, and we all need to be vibrating together on that level. We need, as we rise to God, we need to rise together. So when we call each other, brothers and sisters, or the separateness, or that we're all one, we are each other. We're God and each other and everything. And if no one is to be left behind, God is I'll use the terminology of a tapestry, of this perfect woven tapestry, and the threads are us. And it's not going to be perfect if there are those left out and left behind. All are needed and want to go back to be God. And so there's a lot of work to do I can have my dreams and I can, gain all this knowledge, but it doesn't do any good if I'm not sharing it or caring about my brother, my neighbor, to be in that same kind of situation. And as I say that, I don't mean that it's my responsibility to teach them, because everyone's on their own road, but certainly not to leave them in the dust or forget about them, or, we're all important to God. As a kid, if you've done something like steal a candy bar from your sister and you got caught and everybody's kind of mad at you, and what are you doing, and come down to dinner and you just don't kind of want to face, you're ashamed of your actions. In a way, this is how it's really impossible to stand before God if we're not in that right frame, that right vibration, that matching point of God. So when people say, God has stepped away from me or something, it's like, no, God never steps away from us, but we will tend to step back away from God in our own unworthiness, in our own thoughts that we're unworthy of being with God. That's what holds us back. And we're all worthy. We're all amazing. Yeah.
If we are all part of this big collective, does that include people that don't live on, I shouldn't say the word people, but does that include beings that don't live on this planet
Yes.
or may live in a different dimension?
Yes. Ooh, and we have different dimensions. That was one of my schools too. Oh my goodness. When you're at a crossroads, do I get divorced, or do I have a child, or, what do I go to school? We have those crossroads that we could still experience staying in that marriage, but also an experience of being out of that marriage. That was a huge one for me. What I was shown is I was at on a chair, and there were these 12 bubbles that were circling me. And I was encouraged, as a bubble rose to the top, to do something, and it would reflect inside this bubble. So I'd stick out my tongue or peace sign or something, and that bubble would lift off, drift away, on to keep doing whatever I was doing. This lesson was, I'm like, I started to get it and go, oh my goodness, these things can go on to a different dimension. And then I started and the teacher turned and was with another student, but I'm still thinking. I'm like, well, if I have these 12 bubbles and she's got her bubbles and we all have these different crossroads, and as I'm thinking, the teacher turns back around to me and is like, come on, pull it out, keep going with this, and I'm just like, so if there are so many of these chances to have these crossroads and these different experiences, like, there must be so many different dimensions out there. And he goes, bingo, this one gets an A. And, the teachers are so loving and so patient and so willing, wanting us to learn. But, so in answer to your question, yes, so many brothers and sisters, so many planets, so many chances, so many crossroads, different lives are different. The reincarnations that we go through, I thought I might spend some time on reincarnation, but I know we're we're running out of time, but I get so excited, Heather, because there's like, when I know we're going to talk about this, it's like, what comes out, I'm thrilled to share whatever. And, sometimes I just don't know what's going to come out of my mouth.
Tell us more about what you've learned about reincarnation.
Oh my goodness. Okay. It was one of the harder concepts for me because I didn't grow up in a church, that was kind of like, you get this one chance, you better be good. You go there and you prove you were good and then you get to stay in heaven. And it's like, oh man, that's rough. That's a scary thought. And so, but I was given a book on reincarnation when I was about, 15, 16 years old. I never even read it, but I loved carrying it around because it was so sophisticated and cool. Just the thought, it was like transcendental meditation and reincarnation. And here I am, this young girl, and I'm carrying it around with my homework and that, like I just had, something on the world. So I believed it, but I didn't understand it. And it was in juxtaposition of what the teachings. And so I didn't know what to do with it. And again, back to my dad, I adore my dad, hardly talk about him without crying still. We have such a connection. And this lesson needed to come from him. And I had a dream that I got this card. It drifted from the sky and landed in my hand, an invitation to meet with my dad. Now, I haven't seen him for, 54 years or whatnot. And so it was like, I'm going to get to see my dad. I'm going to go see my dad. And there was a time and a place that this needed to happen. And so it was like, oh my goodness, I got to throw some things together and jump in the car. And so I'm driving to this destination that took several days to get there. And I barely stopped to eat or just put gas in. But while I'm at the gas station, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to see my dad. And people were, we're so happy for you, right? That's great. And as I got to this Midwest town and I'm going down this gravel drive roadway, it didn't even dawn on me why I was traveling so far to meet with the dad. Why didn't he just come and see me? Or, why am I chasing this? And I hadn't had even let myself think about, would he even recognize me? Because it had been so many years. And what I saw as I walked up this drive, that there was a young man that was going back and forth from the house to the back of his truck. And he was putting in a duffel bag and soldier gear, the tan boots and whatnot in the back of the truck. And he totally was ignoring me. And, I stood there for a minute and I didn't know what to do because I'm like, where's my dad? Thinking, and here's this guy just totally ignoring me. And I walked up to the bed of the truck and just kind of stood there and stared at him. And what I got was sorry, I've lost the word, but our souls spoke to each other. And he said, I am your father. I am your father. And he didn't look like my dad. My dad was beautiful, handsome, dark-haired man. And this kid, he wasn't that handsome. And I was staring at him. How can this be my dad? He's basically early 20s. And he had his head was almost shaved, just a little bit of hair on there, light brown. I mean, nothing that was like my dad. But he had a tattoo. And I didn't know what to do with the information that he was my dad, but he wasn't loving or wanting to hug me like his child or something. And I had this impulse to reach and touch this tattoo on his head. It was this weird, not quite triangle, but shaped in a kind of a triangle with something running through it. It was different. And as I touched that, every lifetime, everything I had with my dad, it was like I was the old 45 records with the pole in the middle. It was like I was falling through a stack of those records, and every one of those records was a life. And as I fell through, I experienced that life of either with my dad, as my dad, or a change of gender, or era. There were some that were not with him, but here I'm going through all of these lifetimes, and he's saying, we've always been together. The connection that we have, the love that we have is eternal, and I will always be with you. And when I got to the end of the floating, at the end of the tunnel, he was looking at me at that hole, and I immediately knew that the plan had always been that he would leave me early, that I would be left here to ponder and search and want to know why, that my purpose here, that it was on purpose. It was our contract together. I was to love and adore him and then lose him early and want to find him so badly that I would study and, go to conferences and hear speakers and do podcasts and, everything to understand and find him again. And that was our contract together, is to basically to put out, there is reincarnation, and it's super important. So that was one of our journeys together.
Do you think those lives were metaphors, or do you think those were actual lives?
They were actual lives. Every one of them was as real. I lived as a little girl in the Dust Bowl era in Kansas. I was an abused and beaten wife in Ireland. When you step in that situation, even though it was falling, it was, everything about that life was so real. It snapped. I wish I could remember all of them, but I kept about 12 of them out of massive amount of lives. And they were me. They were me.
It's just incredible. I'm curious if your spirit school has ever touched upon the hellish experiences that some people have, or needing to recuperate.
Yeah. That's a hard one to touch on. For me, for a while, because I know some NDEs and respected people that I've heard their stories, so I don't want to minimize their experience. But what I've learned of that there isn't really hell. We are, as a piece of God, we're creators. God is a creator. Well, guess what? So are we. We can create our own kind of life situation. You can wake up and decide you're going to have a bad day, and you're going to have a bad day, right? We've basically created that. So when so much is taught, if you don't behave this way or whatnot, you're going to go to hell. I think a lot of people expect it almost. This is where I'm going to go. I also believe that it could be an example of you've got to make some changes. So I don't want to be dismissive of somebody else's hellish experience, but from what I have been shown, hell, the devil, all of that, it's real, but it's created by us, by man. It's not a heaven thing. It's not, we're not there to be punished and to be sent to hell or anything like that. That those experiences are purposeful for that individual. And you've had so many examples on your show of different experiences, and it's like, well, why are they all different? Why did this one go to grandma and this one's laying in the field of flowers or next to the river of life, and this one gets to talk to Jesus? It's kind of like, I have to believe it is, we're given what we need at the time. And possibly for me, I needed to be held, and it's all okay. And just more time to study and figure it out.
You have such a light about you that Bubbie just wants to be near you.
Oh, oh.
I know we're running out of time, but I want to touch on this really quickly.
Okay.
And, I've heard you say that we pre plan our lives, we have contracts, but I'm curious, can someone's free will impinge upon somebody else? For example, somebody that murders somebody else? Or do you think that it was always that person's time to die?
You know, um, it's a good question. I'm going to jump. You've heard of Betty Eadie and Blazed by
Yes.
the Light in the 70s, amazing book.
Hmm.
One of the examples that she showed was a kind of the bum on the corner, the panhandler, the drunk that's laying there basically on the sidewalk. And a businessman, or, it's been so many years, I'm sure I'm getting it all wrong, but the crux of the story is he had to walk past this man every time he went to lunch. He saw this example of kind of a wasted life, a wasted human being. But that was a contract between them that this man would come and spend his life basically in the gutter as an example to this one who had so much that apparently his contract is he needed to explore giving, charity, all of those things. So here he had an opportunity to do so, but he needed reminding by a very close friend from the other side who was willing to put himself through that kind of a life as an example to him. My thoughts on our contracts and I believe that we come in knowing that we've kind of signed up for that, though it's not anything that we know that we're mindful of. But sorry, kind of walked off a cliff there to make my point. Is those in to so I don't believe it's an infringement of our free will, because I think, though, our free will is our most important thing that we were given, our free will to say no. You know what? We can get here and go, you know what? I signed on for too much. I don't want to do this. And I think we have every right to cancel the contract. I do believe that. But I think most of us will follow through with the contract. And when we get to the other side and someone who has, oh my goodness, maligned us and abused us and whatnot, you can get to the other side and go, wow, you were awful. I can't believe the way that, what you brought me to. But thank you, because here I am. I've been through it. I've elevated. I've grown. And, it's like, you were just horrible, but you're hugging them because they did such a great job in their job for you.
So while we do make contracts or we do pre-plan, we also have life reviews.
Mm-hmm.
So that indicates to me that yes, our free will can take us off track.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. Another spirit school. I try and make these fast because this is a really cool one. Okay. I was labeled clearly choosing a body. Okay. We have a purpose. We have a mission. This is what we want to accomplish. We maybe need to learn patience or charity or whatever. And so this is the situation we're going to be given. What's the best vehicle for us to come down in to have that set up? What part of the country, our parental situation, financial situation that is going to be best served for that particular mission. And so I was standing there with another soul. I can go, soul level, soul group, someone that was absolutely equal to me in our spiritual growth. There's no hierarchy. None of us are better than or smarter than or anything. But if we've been through more schooling, it's just like, graduating high school or college or anything else. So this particular soul next to me was at the exact equal. He was going to be my son in this life. He was my Jesse. And I got to be in on his choosing a body because I needed to be able to mix DNA with the choice that he was making. Could we make this body? Could we make this happen? And so I got a small choice in that DNA soup, basically. So yeah, there's a lot that we get to participate in those choices. And that's why there's, our choices are super important. They're not, happenstance or I'm going to go take on the world, which some of us want to, but then we get down here and the adversities that we've taken on are just too much. It's like, oh my goodness, I thought I could, who was it? There was something darling I heard where it was like, I picked my journey and my adversities like I was on a shopping spree, 10 minutes in the grocery aisle and whatever I could throw into the cart. I wish I could remember who said it.
Betty Guadagno.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Betty. It's a darling, scenario there.
Yes.
It's like we want, and it's kind of like they'll go, oh, okay, sure. But then you get down here and go, oh my God, please take some of this off my plate. I'm not quite as strong as I thought I was, So, yeah, on contracts.
I will put a link, by the way, to Betty in the description for those of you listening.
I'm so glad you remembered.
Hers is a hard one to forget. It really was such an incredible story.
Yeah.
But Claudia, I have to say, I could sit and talk to you for hours. I am just finding this to be such a enlightening and fascinating conversation. And I know we've run out of time.
I have one little thing I wanted to show you. Are we out of time? Yeah. I'll save it.
No, go right ahead.
This is so cool. Okay, so for a number of years, my darling little grandchildren, little twin boy and girl, lived with us. And their grandpa, I call him basically the professor of profanity, right? They're just words everywhere. And I'm trying to protect these little innocent ears and whatnot. And it was kind of like, when grandpa says things like this or whatever, he's throwing blackness or negative energy into our world here. And and one of them was like, boy, grandpa's really throwing out some blackness today, isn't he? And I decided that we were going to do an experiment. So I want to share this real quickly with you. It's called the rice experiment. And we sterilized 3 mason jars, and I cooked a pot of rice, and in each mason jar, we put 1/2 cup of rice, and I let the kids label each 3 jars. So one of them was labeled hate. We hated this rice. I let them speak whatever profanity, meanness, anything. They thought it was so, they're like, Grandma's letting us say these words, but we spoke it into the glass and then we sealed it. The next glass was love. And we told that rice it was beautiful and we wanted to eat it, that we knew it was going to be the best tasting rice in the whole world. And then the other one was our ignore jar. Well, within 2 weeks, and this has been 3 years, so this is really gross, but I just checked it this morning. This is our rice after 3 years of hate, right?
Wow.
This is the worst one, and it's even drying up. I haven't looked at it in a long time, but this is our ignore jar. Ignore was worse than hate. To be ignored, to not be acknowledged at all, was worse. But after 3 years, Heather, that is the love jar, is still white. The kids go, Grandma, throw that away. And I'm like, I want to know how long it will stay white. How long will love last in this sealed jar that hate can look like this one and love can look like that one?
I love that because it's such an easy experiment for anybody to do.
Anybody.
I did a very similar experiment with my kids. We did it with 3 bananas, and we had a banana. We drew a little heart on it. And then we had another banana that we put an X on. and this was with a Sharpie marker, and
Yeah.
then we just had the neutral banana. And we gave love to the heart banana, and we, said nasty things to the other banana. And the difference was amazing in how quickly the hate one browned
Mm,
compared to the other one. So it is something that we can all do. We can all see for ourselves the power of love and hate.
of love and hate. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, that was
I love that. I love that.
good.
I know people are going to want to connect with you, hear more from you. So tell us about your books and just ways that people can find out more about you.
Well, this is what I'm really super proud of. We Touched Heaven. It's a compilation of 47 different experiences from people all over the world with different beliefs, and it got a nod from Dr. Raymond Moody. He put a review on it and calls it terrific. It won an International Book Award. So I'm super, and it's so many of our friends from IONS and that I just, to have been able to pull all of these wonderful people together with their individual stories. Super proud of that one. And when I was protecting my NDE, I wrote a book called Gifts from the Edge, my first book. I didn't even put my NDE in it. I still wasn't ready to talk about it. But my Lessons from the Edge is very candid. There's a synopsis that's been out for a number of years. I wrote of the 10 things I learned when I died. And it's been all over the internet, but that one contains that synopsis and then goes into the stories of how I came to know those things. So, yeah, I'm pretty proud of the books. And I love talking to people. Before the internet, and I floundered and wondered, and it's so hard. Again, there's a Facebook meme where it's like, I want to talk about serious things. I want to get to the crux. I want to talk about aliens and sex and what you dream about and what you're afraid of. And I don't want to just talk about, hey, what's up, kind of things. That I always hated that surface type talk. And before the internet, there were very few people to share those kind of thoughts with. You can be, I guess, a little bit anonymous, but you get in these groups and you start meeting people. You find your tribe, you find your soul tribe, and those meetings, like at IONS, where you're walking down the hall just as we did, it's like, oh my goodness, I don't know you, but I just love you, and embrace a stranger because we're drawn to each other, because we're one. We're meant to be together. We know each other on deep, deep soul levels for eons and eons, so that just makes it fun.
It does. And that's so true about IONS and finding your people and how it's so easy to make those connections.
Yeah. Yeah.
Claudia, I have so enjoyed this
Yeah.
conversation. It truly has been a delight. I feel like I've learned so much, and I'm so excited that I've been able to have you here and share all of this with my audience.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just buzzing. I love it. Well, thank
I
you.
do as well. I love it. I love these
At,
conversations.
at claudiaedge.com if you have questions or want to make contact or referrals to books or other material or groups or anything. Always glad to help. That's why I'm here.
And I checked that out before we talked, and you do have a lot of information there. So
Great.
it is a good place to check out. Thank you again, Claudia. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
That was so much fun. What a spectacular conversation with Claudia. Man, did I enjoy that. And I really hope you did as well. It's funny because Bubbie hung out here the whole time. In fact, I had to edit out a few times when he kept walking in front of the camera. So I think he was just feeling the vibe, the energy going on with this. And there were a lot of things we talked about. I mean, she covered so much material. So this is what I'll ask you about today. Was there anything she said that you just can't stop thinking about? I would love to know what it is. So please share that in the comments. And if you prefer just to say, I made it, or you want to write a little note to Claudia or to Bubbie, anything, those comments all do make a big difference. But I'd love to know, what really stood out to you. I'd also appreciate it if you could give it a like, share it with a friend, and also subscribe if you haven't, all that stuff that I always say. I know a lot of you are going to want to connect with Claudia, so I will put in the description a link to her website, claudiaedge.com. And also, you'll find a link there to her books and, in fact, to all of the books that have ever been mentioned on my podcast. I'll put a link to Betty there. And I'm also going to put a link there to this new conference that is coming up. We spoke about finding your tribe of people. Well, this is called the Truth Tellers Conference, and it's about near-death experiences, miracles, and also the power of truth. You are going to be able to connect with a lot of very like-minded people at this conference. It sounds amazing. It's in Dallas, February 20th and 21st, and the speakers are going to be excellent. I've heard all of these people speak at conferences, and they are amazing. Jeff Olson, Scott Drummond, Vinnie Tolman, Barbara Bartolome, and also Cara Marlene. Again, fantastic speakers. You are going to love it. So you can find out more information. That will be in the description. So you can look for that there. I do have a couple of other ways you can support me. You can buy merchandise, and you can also become a member. For those of you that have signed up for membership, hopefully you're enjoying some of the special things I've been sharing with you, some of behind the scenes photos and that kind of thing. Most of all, I always want to say this, just thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate that support for those of you coming back week after week. I've got more great guests ahead, so please do come back again. And you can always just look for me. Go to Beyond with Heather Tesch. YouTube may send me out, maybe not. So always come looking. Thank you all for being here. Love you so much. Goodbye. Thanks for joining me on Beyond with Heather Tesch. Please add comments and questions you'd like future guests to answer. Also, if you liked what you heard, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. That'll help keep this podcast going. You can also go to Beyond with Heather Tesch to look for more episodes.